Fallen for a man she's never met.
To help Eric, I sold my house.
You sold your house?
I had given a lot of money to Eric. I didn't even keep track.
I did. We had a grand total. Here's what Eric said. Just relax, love. So when's the $12,000 coming in?
She's lonely and she's looking for companionship, and this guy's telling her everything she wants to hear.
She refuses to believe this is not a real relationship.
You're in love.
Yes, I'm in love.
You've never met this man.
Now, a private investigator gets to the bottom of it.
You will not believe what he found. If he's not for real, would you want to know it? We found the man who goes with the picture. Let's do it.
Have a good show, everybody. Here we go.
I hate to see people suffering, and you've heard long enough.
Stand by, Dr. Phil.
I'm going to get you the help that you need.
In 5, 4,
This is going to be a changing day in your life.
Go, Dr. Phil.
How you doing? How are y'all? Well, could you imagine, now think about this, having your mother come to visit and getting so angry with her that you pack up her bags, you put them on the doorstep, you call a cab, and you tell her to just get out? Well, I guess some of you would. Well, that's exactly what Kerry did to his 65-year-old mother, Gilda. Why? Because of these. I have over 100 receipts he says prove his mother, Gilda, sent tens of thousands of dollars to her online boyfriend, who he says she never met. And it just made him crazy. Kerry says his mother is acting like a teenager in heat. Said she is always huddled in the corner of the room, texting her boyfriend, telling lies about what she's doing and where she's going, and even sent her boyfriend topless photos. Take a look.
When my father passed away 4 years ago, my mother was debt-free and the house was paid off. After a couple of years, my mom was lonely, so she started going on these dating websites. At first, my mother was scammed for $2,500. We thought she learned a lesson the first time, but everything changed after she met Eric Lane. He's got a construction site, and that's really all I know about him. My mother has never spoken with Eric Lane on the phone, just texting. I'm definitely convinced he's a scammer. I would guess my mother has sent him approximately $150,000. Every time she sends him money, it seems like there's another excuse to send him more money. My mother would rather text than spend time with her grandchildren, and that ticks me off. My mother's financial situation appears to be in ruins now. My mother's credit cards were maxed out. She even went so far as to sell her house to send this guy more money. Right now, my mother's renting a 2-bedroom townhouse. In my eyes, she's on my dad's grave. Since she's met this catfish, Eric, almost everything is now gone. If my mother can't stop seeing this scammer, I don't want her to be around her grandkids.
Well, Kerry's wife, Linda, says her mother-in-law even cut short spending time with her grandchildren so she could run to the bank and send money to her boyfriend.
We actually warned Gilda about going on to dating sites because we heard that there were a lot of scams out there. We found out Gilda was sending money when Kerry's brother Paul logged onto her computer. We found all these transactions in an email. We felt shocked. She's lonely and she's looking for companionship, and this guy's telling her everything she wants to hear. Eric claimed that he was from Ohio, but he almost immediately told Gilda that he had to go to the UK for work. I believe that she's being catfished. Can you get the box for Mommy, Sienna? We don't want her around our kids when she's constantly texting this person. It's distracting, and she's not paying attention to the kids at all. I told Gilda to take my kids' pictures off her Facebook page if she was going to be involved with what we thought was a scammer. I was concerned that my kids would be kidnapped or used in some way to get more money from her. My children are close to Gilda, and she is a good grandmother, but something has to change. My children miss their grandmother, and we want her back.
You describe her as being head over heels in love here.
It appears that way.
I mean, this is your mother, right? I know you're used to thinking about her with your dad and all of that kind of stuff. Are you just overreacting to the fact that there might be a new man in her life?
Well, men that she's never met. All we know is that she's texted him, never talked to him on the phone, no computer video chat. Just texting is it.
Kind of like puppy love, like infatuation.
A 14-year-old girl in heat.
You say she hides her cell phone in her bra?
She did that once when I caught her. She was texting downstairs, playing with the grandkids, I think, and I came downstairs and she put it down her top.
Carrie and Linda are not the only family members upset with Gilda. Her other son, Paul, says he has actually shown his mother proof that Eric is a scammer, but she just doesn't want to hear it. Take a look at this, and then we'll add him to the conversation.
My mother and I are very close. I talk to her almost daily. It haunts me to this day because I encouraged Mom to go online to find someone else to date. I pleaded with my mom to look for somebody who is more compatible because this guy was at least 20 years younger than my mother. Some of the conversations were of a sexual nature, which I think my mom was embarrassed about. These sexual comments just forced her to be isolated because she was so ashamed of showing anybody. She refuses to believe this is not a real relationship. We need someone to prove to Mom that this guy is not real.
All right, well, joining us is Carrie's brother, Paul, who's on Polycom. Paul, thanks for being here. You say this is like she's on drugs. She's so hooked on this.
It's almost like a drug addiction, yes. And we just simply do not know what to do.
She says, look, Dr. Phil, my sons are just wrong. And her handsome, online, younger boyfriend, Eric, is not an imposter. He is real, and he is her future. Because her heart tells her that this is for real. And the heart just doesn't lie.
A couple of days after I signed up for Match.com, I replied to a message from Eric Lane. He was a successful businessman, a successful interior designer. He had been divorced for 5 years, and he had one son in college in London. It wasn't long before I felt a relationship going on. He was more forward than I was. It's exciting and mesmerizing being in a relationship. He's saying, yes, baby, I love you. Love, are you okay? We made concrete plans to meet on 3 separate occasions, and there was always an obstacle that came up that he couldn't make it. He's given several reasons why he can't get out of London. He had to pay his hotel bill and couldn't get his passport until he did. He frequently says, I'll be home to you soon. I've never physically met Eric face to face. Eric has been asking me for money. Baby, are you sending the funds today? And I said, honey, I need money and prayers, love. And he says, so you don't want to help me? He needed money for hospital bills. He needed processing fees to cash his foreign checks. Then they took his passport. He had to pay his hotel bill. He wanted an iPhone and a computer for his son. Every time I was asked for money, it scared me. I had lots of warnings, a lot of people saying this could be a romance scam. It felt real to me. The largest sum I ever sent at one time was $18,000. I think it could add up to $100,000. To help Eric, I sold my house. The plan is when he can get out of London, we'll buy a house together and get married. It would be a dream come true to be married to Eric. I love him and I think he's real.
Now, it's good to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Did I hear you say you sold your house?
Yes, I just did. I just sold my house.
Okay. And you sold it because you needed money?
I sold it because I needed money. Yes, I had given a lot of money to Eric.
But you're in love.
Yes, I'm in love.
You've known him now, you've been in contact with him for 1 year and 3 months, right?
That's right.
Okay, and you shared with us some of the text messages to give us a feel for who he is,
yes.
Right? Because he apparently is hugely in love with you.
Yes.
You guys have texted back and forth. He says, love you so much, will you marry me? So you got a proposal.
That's right, I did.
And later, we found the man who goes with the picture. I want you to take a look at this screen right here. Is that the man that you're in love with? You guys have texted back and forth, and here's one. Eric says, I want to spend the rest of my life with you, and I want to hold you and kiss you and make love to you and wake up beside you every morning for the rest of my life. That's nice to hear.
Yes, it is.
You responded, I so want that too, love. You call him love?
Yes, I do.
And he says, I think it would be better if you allow your sexy, put your fingers in your ears. Your sexy ass to get spanked. Gilda says, well, I'm waiting for this sexy man to be here so I can say, I'm yours, love. Thanks for your patience. He says, love you so much, will you marry me? And you say, I will marry you, love. I love you with all of my heart.
That's right.
So you got a proposal.
That's right, I did.
And you accepted.
I did after talking for, well, practically every day.
And here's what you know about him, because I kind of summarized it so I would know what you know about him. His name's Eric Lane.
Right.
Right? He's age 52. Gave you his home address. Married status, divorced for 6 years. Mm-hmm. He has a son, David Lane, who attends Chelsea Football School in London.
Right.
Family, at 18, his parents were killed in an accident.
Yes.
He's self-employed by Eric M. Enterprises. Schooling attended, he went to Denver East High School, so he's from Colorado.
Yes.
Denver East High School and Westwood College in Denver North. He's stuck in London, Scotland, or Ireland because his visa expired. And his bank won't allow him to access his money. Why won't they let him access it, by the way?
It's foreign checks that there needs to be a processing fee of a certain cost in order to get the money out.
But you sent him that money.
I did. The money was for many different things.
There's a reason that Eric needed money. And I made a list, and this is, again, just bottom line. I know there's a story behind each one. To invest in a business, to pay his hotel bill, to pay his hospital bill, gifts for his son's school tuition.
Just 1 month.
Airline tickets.
Yes.
To buy a cell phone, to buy a computer, to eat, and processing fees in order to cash checks. Those are the reasons that you said, and going back through the history, the reasons that you sent him money. What were the airline tickets for?
To come to Saskatoon from London.
But he didn't come?
No.
Why not?
He had always had a reason. The first time, he was wanting investment fees, and I finally did do that. And then I tried to wire a transfer to help with that so that he could come. The transfer didn't take 3 days. It took close to a month, so that means hotel bills for an extra month.
Okay, if you were looking for a car and I had one to sell, would you buy it without ever seeing it?
It totally depends on the situation.
Does that...
But
without seeing
it depends. I went on Christian Mingle, Match.com, and Senior, and I put my picture up, my profile. I got 55 messages that same night, and I tried to message back to several people, and it ended up that I liked the profile and this man, his picture and everything, so I started messaging, yes.
All right, one question before we go to break here. If he's not for real, and I'm just go with me there for argument purposes, would you want to know it?
I want to know the truth.
You want to know the truth.
Right.
What, good or bad, you want to know the truth.
I'm here for that.
Next, just how much money has Gilda sent to Eric? We're going to break it all down, plus the threatening text that he sent to her. We'll be right back. She meets Eric July 7th. That same month, she sends $10,988.
I didn't even keep track.
I did. And later, I can't show these publicly because we don't know who this is. But these are some of the people that you've been sending money to for him.
When my husband died, I felt comfortable with the finances I had. I took some money out of my pension fund to help Eric. I pretty well maxed out. I feel very stressed. I feel concerned. I say lots of prayers every day. Eric said he'd pay me back, that he would sell his house and buy one, and we would have a future.
Well, our Twitter wall is really buzzing about Gilda, who admits to being in love with a man that she has never physically met. Her sons, Carrie and Paul, and Carrie's wife, Linda, all think she is being taken for a very expensive ride by a catfish, a scammer. If you'd like to join the discussion, you can tweet me now at #catfish. Now, Gilda admits to sending money to her online boyfriend, Eric, who is currently stuck in London after his visa expired and they took his passport. Let's look at some of the text between Gilda and Eric about money. Here's what Eric said. Love, it seems the wire transfer will take forever before it gets here. Gilda, I am so angry about it, I can't even think what to do anymore. I love you so much. Eric, love you more, baby. Gilda, I have done all I can except sell my home, love. For you, I would. Eric, no, love, I would never ask you to do such a thing. Did I tell you that I've only been eating once a day for the past 2 days? Gilda, look, I took all of my empty bottles back. I have $28 now for groceries this week. Going to have a garage sale and sell some items Paul and I don't need. Eric, love, please, what about the $12,000 I asked for? Gilda, honey, I'm at the end of my lifeline. I am almost destitute too. There's a small pension fund left. Eric, please pull the money out and I will pay back. I need $12,000.
Makes me angry when I hear it.
Really? It makes me angry to read it because from a psychological standpoint, I saw a lot of manipulation there. I've done all I can except sell my house. No, love, I would never ask you to do that. Did I mention I'm only eating once a day? Come on. All right, Gilda says, I took back empty bottles. You're turning in bottles for the refund? Got $28 for groceries the whole week. Gonna have a garage sale. What about the $12,000 I asked you for? You just said I got $28 to eat on for the week. And he says, yeah, I get it. What about the 12 grand I need? You said, look, I'm sorry, all I've got is a small pension fund left. Please pull that money out. I need the 12,000. When you look at it all together in context, is that of concern to you?
Yes, it is.
I'm so glad. Okay, now, there's more. Okay, this is where Eric threatens your mother. Gilda, should I sell my home and bring you back? What if you're not happy and leave? Then I'll be in deep trouble. You'll have your home, your assets, and mine may be gone. Eric, ha, ha, ha. Have a good life, okay? Bye. And you will never hear from me again. Bye. Then you said, what do you mean, love? This is mean and hurts. Eric, no, you hurt me. You just broke my heart. Well, I'm scared of selling my house, she says. Love, I'm with you all the way. Please. You ask a rational question, he bites you, then says, where's the 12? I want the 12,000. Then they talked about fraud. Gilda, because of the bad check given to me, which I was naive about, that could be considered fraud. Are you serious? You got a fraudulent check? Gilda, I had no idea. Honestly, love, believe me. Eric, God, how could people be so heartless? I can imagine how heartbroken you would be and how mad that could make you. Gilda says, well, the UK police are upping their investigations on fraud and scams there, love. Well, don't give them my information.
Okay, gotta like that.
But I do not want you or I to go to jail, love. Eric, yes, love, and none of us would go to jail, okay? You can send via Western Union. Let's get out of this check business. You can send via Western Union. Gilda says, if my sons find out about this, they will be so angry with me until the funds are returned. Just relax, love, okay? So when's the 12,000 coming in?
Really?
Said that way, it sounds different.
Let me be sure I've done my math right here. Okay, she meets Eric July 7th, right? Okay, that same month she sends $10,988 in the first month. Now you've only known this boy less than a month, and you sent him $10,988.
I didn't even keep track.
I did. What do you think of that? Weeks.
I'm not shocked. I feel...
Okay, that's July. Okay, August, second month. $41,178.46. September, $29,214.50. October, $10,000, $854. November, $2,187.52. December, $3,000. January, $4,000. February, $3,190. Then we jump to June.
Of course.
Carrie, Paul?
I don't know what to say. More
Paul,
than
what
I
do you have to
thought.
say?
I don't have words at the moment. She had promised me every day that she was not sending money.
August, $27,120. Then there was additional money transfer of $9,398. And then we had a grand total.
It's 50,000 more than I thought. Nice job.
$191,950.48. That's in black and white. You've never met this man in person. You've never talked to him on the phone. So you're buying this deal. It's like you're not buying my car, you're buying the whole dealership. This is not an insubstantial amount of money to you, right?
It's a lot of money. I just felt like relationship online, talking every day, there was someone there for me. And yes, the money was pressure, was upsetting. It seemed like I was just mesmerized and in love, and I couldn't. Whenever he was in trouble, it just got my heart, and I couldn't seem to stop.
And if he's real, then this is all coming back, right? It's all coming back if he's real.
If he's real.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk about whether he's real or not. Next, private investigator Doug Kane looked into Gilda's online boyfriend, Eric Lane, and he has some very interesting details to reveal when we come back. I can't show these publicly because we don't know who this is. But these are some of the people that you've been sending money to for him. Well, we're here with Gilda, who has been in a romantic and expensive relationship with her online boyfriend, Eric Lane, for 1 year and 3 months. Now, her sons, Carrie and Paul, and her daughter-in-law, Linda, are angry and frustrated because they claim Gilda has sent Eric virtually all of her life savings and even sold the family home and has now sent him over $191,000. So I asked Doug Kane, he's the president of Risk Control Strategies, to do some work for us. Doug is here. And now, prior to becoming a private investigator, Doug was a special agent with the FBI for 27 years conducting criminal investigations. So you have used databases and all different kinds of things to determine what's real and what's not about this person, true?
Absolutely, Dr. Phil.
All right. And let's take a look at what he has found so far. And you'll have to follow me along here. Now, after searching multiple databases for Eric Lane, that's the name, with the date of birth that he has given you, he did a lot of checking. He said, for example, that he went to East High School in Denver, right? Well, we've contacted them. They've gone through their transcripts. No record of Eric Lane. Never attended that school, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. You sent Eric money through a friend, Chris Mullins, 65 times. That name shows up on multiple dating sites with different pictures. The photo of Gilda's Eric showed up on several dating sites with different names. So you've got this picture of this man that you have fallen in love with. It shows up on all of these different websites. Eric Lane, James Simmons, George Buckner, Albert, Craig Murphy, and Melvin Stunt.
Yeah, I don't know what to say here, Gilda. I mean, basically what has happened is you have fallen in love with an online identity. It is not an individual. This person doesn't exist.
Now, Eric told Gilda that his son, David Lane, attends Chelsea Football School in London. There is a Chelsea Football Club in London. There's no Chelsea Football School, but there is a Chelsea Football Club. They have no David Lane listed on their roster. And there is no school. He only wanted you to text him through the internet. Why is that?
Well, what you find here is he didn't want to have a real conversation with you. So he would go back and forth through the internet, which makes it much more difficult to track.
I have some things I can show you. I can't show these publicly because we don't know who this is. But these are some of the people that you've been sending money to for him, and we're not showing them. But see, this is the Chris Mullins,
Okay.
and he's on all these scammer sites. Here he is again on a scam site. So tell me what's your reaction to what I've said so far.
I wanted the truth, and I know my sons warned me and everybody warned me, but I just wanted to know for sure.
Well, I don't want you to have any doubts. We're going to take a break. Eric gave Gilda his home address in Ohio. So naturally, Doug Kane checked that out. You will not believe what he found. Don't even get up and go to the bathroom. You are not going to believe what he found out. We'll be right back.
The relationship with my sons has been difficult. My heart was pulled between this person that I love and helping him, and making sure that my sons know that I care about them, which I do a lot. My sons are pretty obviously clear it's a scam. I don't feel that way, but I just want to know for sure. I want to know the truth.
Well, private investigator Doug Kane has been sharing with Gilda what he's found out about her online love, Eric Lane, who her sons and daughter-in-law believe is a catfish imposter who is using her for their deceased father's hard-earned life savings. Now, by the way, I want to say, we're using the name Eric Lane, and I'm putting quotes around that every time, and Chris Mullins, because, look, I'm sure there are Eric Lanes and Chris Mullins out there who have nothing to do with this. That's just the name that's being used. So if you work with or know somebody by that name, don't think we're saying they're scammers. They're victims. Somebody has stolen their name and is using it as part of what I believe and Gilda's family believe is a fraud. Now, the address Eric Lane gave Gilda exists. We found something that exists, and it is owned by someone with a similar name, but he is 21 years younger than your Eric Lane. Here is the house, right here. It exists. It is on a street. It's the right address. It's the right street. That is the house. You were able to find that, verify that, and on the phone, we have the man who actually lives in this house where Gilda's boyfriend claimed he lived. Hello, Dr. Eric, are you there?
I am.
You are not Eric Lane that has been on the internet talking to Gilda, correct?
Correct.
But you have a similar name, and this is your house and your address, but somebody has just ripped it off, true?
That seems to be the case, yes.
Gilda, this man that you're talking to, he's a doctor. He doesn't have a construction company. He's a doctor. He lives in this house that your man told you was his home address. Well, you're talking to the man that lives here. He's a doctor. What's your specialty, doctor?
I'm a psychiatrist. That irony is not lost here. I'm sure.
Doctor, we'll let you get back to your important work. Thank you so much for helping us out today.
You're welcome.
In case she needs just a little more convincing, we have one more bit of shocking news for Gilda after the break.
I've only seen Eric on webcam at the very beginning of the relationship a few times. I couldn't hear him very well at all. I didn't pick up any accents. The picture that I saw was very much like the person in the video, but it was a little bit darker. It looked pretty identical. It felt like a real person to me.
Well, you just heard Gilda say she spoke to her online boyfriend, Eric, on Skype, and that convinced her that he and their love were real. But you admit that that picture was pretty dark and grainy. And
yes, it was. It was, you could see the form and you could see the identity, but it was hard to hear.
So you've never really seen him up close, face to face?
No.
Okay. Well, I want you to take a look at this screen right here. Is that the man that you talked to on Skype?
It looks like it.
Well, that certainly is the man that you're in love with.
Yes, that's right.
Your family said he didn't exist. He wasn't real.
Now this is all confusing me.
It's confusing because there he is.
Yeah.
Let me introduce you to attorney James Avery from Denver, Colorado. James, hello.
Hello, Dr. Phil. Hello, Gilda.
This is the man right here. This is an attorney from Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
This is the picture that has been ripped off by the person telling you he is Eric Lane. Let me ask you, has your name ever been Eric Lane?
No, obviously it's not.
James, do you know anyone named Eric Lane?
No, this all is very new to me. I'm seeing it for the first time.
And you obviously have nothing to do with this whatsoever. Somebody saw your picture, they took it off and started using it and putting it out there on the internet.
It's shocking, but obviously true.
So you say you're confused. We found the man who goes with the picture.
Exactly, yes.
James, I'm very sorry that they jacked your picture, but at least now you know it, so you can be scanning for that sort of thing. And you're very kind to take time out of your day as a professional to sit down and have this conversation with Gilda. I think it helps her so much to see the man behind the picture and to know that it's not the person that he's purported to be. Has this been a help to you?
Yes.
All right, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Good luck, Gilda.
Next, I'll tell you how to figure out if you are being baited by a catfish. We'll be right back. Well, I'm back with Gilda and her family, and all of them are in a bit of shock right now. I think you guys are in shock at the number.
More than I thought. Yeah.
It's more than you thought, but you knew it was bad. Paul, I know it's more than you thought, but you knew we were talking about 6 figures here. And Gilda,
yes.
We've shared a lot of information with you. I'll tell you why this is so important to me, is you clearly deserve to have a relationship. You clearly deserve to have someone to share your life with. And whoever is doing this has stolen 15 months of your life. And when you could have been meeting and going through the normal evolution and finding someone that you could share experiences with in your life. And that's the tragedy. He's taken your money, he's taken your time, he's broken your heart. But are you glad to know the truth?
I wanted to know the truth for some time, and I guess I came from a world of trust, and I just couldn't believe it had happened to me.
Okay, and let me ask you straight up, look me in the eye. Do you believe and understand that there is no Eric Lane?
Yes, I do.
No doubt, no question, we're clear.
It's clear to me, and I wanted to be here for the truth.
Okay, have we done our job here?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
You good?
Thank
Paul,
you.
we good?
I do worry that she might continue to text, but we'll try to be there.
Well, we're going to unplug. He's going to have a hard time finding her because everything should change after you two get a chance to vent a little with this guy, which I think would be interesting. And listen, there are warning signs to tell if you are being baited by a catfish, and one is dumb date data. The physical description should match the photos. And if you see professional photos, that's a red flag. I mean, if it's a glam photo, they've ripped it off from some modeling site somewhere. Look for spelling and grammar fail. So many of these folks don't speak English as a first language. If they're derailing you from a dating site, saying, okay, let's get off of this site, it's just you and me, let's get over to the side. They get too serious too soon, they ask a lot of questions, they're fake book fakers, and realize you are not an ATM machine. If you were glued to today's show, stay tuned for tomorrow's episode where we are going to confront a real-life catfish who will actually be here in studio sitting on this stage. We found one, we caught one, we reeled him in. You don't want to miss that.
I don't either.
I want to thank all of my guests today. Thank you so much, Gilda. Thank you.
Thanks,
Today on Dr. Phil, they were witnesses to a killing.
Did you actually see him shoot himself?
Yeah, but I don't remember anything.
Was it suicide?
None of us had anything to do with your son's death.
I don't think that they're telling the truth.
Or something else?
He thinks one of you three shot Jake.
Grieving parents.
If the gun was at a slightly downward angle, how did the bullet end up in the ceiling?
Want answers?
I can't explain to you how the bullet ended up that way.
The mysterious death of Jacob Limberius.
I'm just upset that I even have to be here.
Well, is that inconvenient for you? Night that forever changed the lives of 4 young adults and their families. What started as a night of friends hanging out suddenly took a very wrong turn and ended up with one of them dead and the other 3 at the center of a real-life mystery. Now, according to the grieving family, they say that initially there was no police investigation, no coroner at the scene, and no autopsy. They were simply left with a death certificate that said suicide and a mountain of unanswered questions. 2 exhumations, 2 autopsies, and nearly 2 years of twists and turns makes this a mystery like we have never seen before. Today we're going to try to get to the bottom of exactly what happened that cold March night in a small Ohio town. Was it suicide? Was it an accident? Or was it something far more sinister?
My 19-year-old son, Jake, was found dead with a bullet through his head. The coroner deemed it as a suicide, but I don't believe them. On the night of March 2nd, Jake approached me about having his best friends over and they wanted to drink. I told him absolutely not, and he left this house. He was with 3 friends, Evan, Brittany, and then William. He went down to Brittany's house. Jake had a .357 Magnum revolver. This was Jake's gun. And he apparently said, "Do you guys want to go back outside and shoot?" So all of them went out back and shot at a white bucket. Jake apparently unloaded the casings, passed them out as a souvenir. I'm told that Brittany picked up a live round, handed it to Jake, and Jake put it back in the gun. He was standing in the middle of the room. The kids claimed that Jake put the gun up to his head and pulled the trigger. I got a call from Jake's girlfriend. Apparently, her sister, Brittany, had called her and said that Jake was shot. She called me in a panic.
Mike looked white as a ghost, and he only said to me, "Something's wrong with Jake."
I remember pulling down the road that the house is on, and I see nothing but lights flashing. I just took off running as fast as I could. An officer said I could not go in there. This was a crime scene, and told me, "I'm sorry, your son is dead." Sorry, guys. I remember going back to my van and I was throwing up. I couldn't see. I was like I was blind.
I just remember being in shock and thinking, no, this isn't happening.
The coroner never came to the scene that night. The sheriffs make a ruling of suicide before they even take the kids in for written statements. Things just did not add up. I know my son, he would not commit suicide.
Well, with the strong belief that his son did not take his own life, Mike searches for answers.
We started questioning the suicide right away. One of the first suspicious things that we realized at the funeral home is that Jake was shot in the left side of the head and Jake is right-handed. There's a mistake here.
It never dawned on us that it would be labeled as suicide. Jake was not suicidal.
We wanted the coroner to order an autopsy. We asked for that for months with denial. No.
The sheriff's department closed the investigation, saying the investigation was over.
When they closed down the investigation, I became the investigator, and I started gathering material, everything I could, and so we made a decision to have Jake exhumed. We approached Dr. Sarah Wecht for this.
Dr. Wecht did not find any stippling or gunshot powder residue on Jake's head. Dr. Wecht ruled that the gun had to be at least 18 inches from Jake's head, and that he couldn't have done it.
He said, forget about what side Jacob was shot on. Answer the real question. Was it possible that Jacob could have shot himself? The real question is, did Jacob shoot himself or did someone else? We were forced to file a lawsuit against the coroner just to change the death certificate.
Once we had filed the lawsuit with the county, they then decided that they wanted to do their own autopsy.
The second autopsy's findings were different from Dr. Weck's. It was suggested that the bullet entered the right side and exited the left side of Jacob's head. Everyone else said it was left to right. I want to clear Jake's name from the suicide that's on his death certificate so his 4-year-old daughter doesn't have to grow up and think that her daddy put a gun to his head. All 3 of the witnesses, I don't think that they're telling the truth.
If Dr. Phil can get us the truth, it would be the miracle I've been praying for.
I won't stop until there is justice for Jake.
Well, Mike and Shannon, first off, as a father, let me tell you, as a parent, how sorry I am for your loss. I mean, I just can't even imagine getting that phone call and hearing what you heard. So I'm very, very sorry for your loss. Tell me, I just want to go to the end and work backwards. Bottom line, what do you think happened?
With what I know today, Dr. Phil, there's 2 forensic pathologists that say that this is a homicide.
So there were 3 other people in the room?
Yes.
Will, Evan, and Brittany?
Yes.
And you do not think that either one of them had malice, any of the 3 of them had malice towards your son, wanted him dead, shot him to kill him? You're not suggesting that?
No.
You don't believe
Jake
that?
didn't even know 2 of the 3 people there.
Mm-hmm.
He'd never met them.
Okay, he didn't know Will and Evan?
No.
He knew Brittany?
Yes.
Okay. So you think one of those 3 messing around with the gun, playing with the gun or something, it went off and he was accidentally shot?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
We don't know what happened in that house that night.
But I didn't, what I ask you is what you believe, because after all of this time, you've got to embrace some conclusion or belief, and you think it was an accidental shooting, but not by your son. What do you think, Shannon?
I absolutely believe it was an accident. I don't believe that Jake did it, and I don't believe that whoever did it on purpose.
Mm-hmm. Now, there are those that would say that no parent wants to believe that their son, that their child would intentionally hurt themselves, intentionally take their own life.
Right.
Is it possible he shot himself accidentally? Who told the investigator that the moment before Jake was shot, he yelled out a warning, "The gun is loaded"? And later, did you actually see him shoot himself?
Yeah, but I don't remember.
If you do know something about this, you need to give that up. Is it possible he shot himself accidentally?
I'm sure that it's possible. If you look at the entrance wound or the exit wound, because there is some controversy right now over whether it was left to right or right to left. We were told initially it was left. He was shot behind the left ear. He was right-handed. That question never arose. Nobody asked us. Mm-hmm. And we didn't find out about that until we were making the funeral arrangements. If it were left to right, it exited up here. Now, either way, it's going to be very difficult for Jake to maneuver holding a gun here, or it'd be very difficult for him to have shot himself either way.
Let's talk about his psychological profile. This was not a young man with a history of depression. correct? I mean, he was not...
He had struggled a year and a half before.
Yeah, but this is a year and a half before.
Right, a year and a half before. I mean, he was a young father. He was 16 years old when Ella was born.
Yeah, a lot of stress and pressure at that point.
Working and going to school, finishing school. No, at this point, he was extremely excited that his two best friends that had gone away to college were coming home, and he hadn't seen them since Christmas. I mean, he was really excited.
Is that who he had just talked to on the phone?
That's one of the boys he was talking to.
One of the boys, that's who he had just hung the phone up before this happened.
Right.
So, and the other three in the room report that he was very happy at the time. He was happy when he hung up the phone, that he was happy during the drive, that there were no indications that he was stressed out, withdrawn, depressed, sad, confused, anything.
No.
No indications at all that there would be an emotional underpinning to explain him taking his own life.
No.
And they said seconds before he was happy. He had hung up the phone, he was happy, everybody was kind of cutting up. And so what I'm saying is, from a psychological standpoint, there was nothing antecedent to this that would suggest it. This would have been a 180. He was happy and doing well at the time.
Correct.
Okay. Now, you guys have said that some of the questions that you want answered is why there was no preservation of evidence at the scene, right? You challenge that. Why wasn't any competent death scene investigator called to evaluate it? That includes coroner, detective, BCI, anybody. Those things bother you. That they didn't treat this with a consideration for alternatives.
Correct.
Okay. Now, there are a number of things that bother you about this. If Jake was standing with the gun pointed at his head at a slightly downward angle, which is what was initially reported, how did the bullet end up in the ceiling? Right? If he was pointing the gun down, how did it wind up in the ceiling? It would have to be some type of deflection, which I suppose under some circumstances could happen. You say it was reported at the scene that a witness told the lead investigator that the moment before Jake was shot, he yelled out a warning that the gun was loaded, right?
Yes.
So the investigator said that it was reported that right before this happened, he yelled out a warning, the gun is loaded.
Be careful, there's one more in there.
Yeah, be careful, there's one more in there. But this wasn't documented anywhere?
Not by the sheriff's department, I don't believe.
And how do we know he said that? Who told the investigator?
It's in recordings that the three witnesses, they say that in
their audio.
Right, all right. And we have a whole list of questions. Why did the sheriff's department and coroner rule this was a suicide with no investigation? A witness said that the gun was moved prior to the sheriff arriving at the scene, but nobody dealt with that. Nobody touched on it. Brittany was allowed to change her clothes. You know, why would that take place if there's a proper investigation going on? And on and on. We have additional questions, and we'll talk about those as we go along. We've got to take a break right now. Brittany and Will are here. They were in the room at the time. We're going to find out why they say they are now victims and that Mike is making their lives hell. We'll be right back.
The next thing I know, I hear a really loud shot. Jacob is lying in front of me and blood is coming out of his head.
His body hit the ground like rocks. The whole living room shook when he fell.
On March 2nd, 2012, 19-year-old Jacob Limberius was shot in the head and killed. His death was ruled a suicide. The three friends who were with him that night say he shot himself by accident. His family says not only would Jake never commit suicide, but there is no way Jake would have been so careless. After all, it was his gun, and he was well aware of gun safety. His family believes the witnesses are lying and that it was actually one of them who accidentally shot Jake, but they're afraid to tell the truth. 2 of the 3 witnesses are here today speaking out for the first time. Take a look as Brittany and Will tell their side of the story.
The day that Jake died started off like any other day. Jake and I made plans to have a party at my house. It was me, William, Evan, and Jacob. I have no idea why Jacob was carrying his gun. He was always carrying brass knuckles and his knives out in the country. That's what you do for fun. I maybe had 3 beers. Jake, I don't think had even one.
He mentioned he had a loaded gun on him. I didn't know what to think. He was like, would you guys like to go outside and shoot it?
So we go out to the backyard. Jacob tells us to shoot at the white bucket.
I shot it twice, Evan shot it, and then Brittany shot it. Jacob also shot it. Jacob asked if any of us wanted to shoot the last bullet, and I said no, it was freezing out.
We all start heading back inside. Jacob disperses the shell casings, the empty ones, all over the floor. He just said, here's one for each of you for a trophy for shooting the gun for the first time. And there was one live one left, and I gave it back to him. And Jacob put it back into the gun.
I remember looking down, I bought a bag of combos. And I remember opening the bag and going in to eat a couple. All 3 of us were sitting on the couch, and there's an ottoman right next to me, and that's where I last placed the gun.
He picked up the gun off of the ottoman, and the next thing I know, I hear a really loud shot. I look over towards a window in my kitchen, expecting it to, like a shot to be in the wall over there, and then Jacob is lying in front of me and blood is coming out of his head.
His body hit the ground like rocks. The whole living room shook when he fell, and we all ran to the kitchen.
I got a towel and tried to stop the bleeding and couldn't stop screaming.
I could smell the gunpowder, and that really stuck with me. And I looked around the corner, and I seen him laying on the ground as if he was sleeping. I knew he was gone when I looked in the room.
William called 911 first, and then gave the phone to Evan.
Listen, I need 911. My friend just shot himself in the head. Okay, is he moving? Breathing?
No, it was his gun. It was a 3, something crazy. He pulled it out, and he shot himself in the head.
I just remember Brittany screamed 40 minutes straight. I remember yelling at her because I couldn't get her to stop screaming.
I asked the police if I could change my clothes. I was in socks and my pants were all muddy. The cops were nice enough to let me do that. I asked them for my shoes, and the cop said that you don't want your shoes. My shoes were bloody.
I didn't go back in the room. I knew it would traumatize myself to see him.
I was put into a cop car and escorted to the police station. I told the police it was an accident.
I went to the funeral, and it was my feeling that the family looked at us like we had something to do with this.
The funeral didn't even feel like it was real. It felt like a dream. I stayed with Mike and Shannon and my sister. I wanted to be with my family, but it just got to be too much over there. Mike believes that we did something wrong. He's caused so much pain. He already knows that Jake shot himself. He just doesn't want to believe it. So why do I have to wake up every morning feeling like I want to die?
It's hurting more people than it is helping. I don't blame Mike for trying to find the truth, but he just doesn't accept the truth.
I am not lying. Losing Jacob was the worst thing that's happened to any of us.
Well, Brittany and Will are joining us now, and I appreciate y'all being here. You were in the room when this happened. It's a terrible thing for y'all to be exposed to, and I know it's had an effect. You said that you believe that he thinks one of you 3 shot Jake.
Yes.
And you understand that Mike and Shannon both believe that if in fact that happened,
it was accidental.
That it was an accident. They're not saying that either one of you did anything on purpose or that you wanted to hurt Jake or kill him or anything of the sort. So they're not accusing you of that. But what they're saying is, if there was an accident, give them the peace of mind of knowing it was an accident. They already don't think you did anything wrong. They're just saying they don't think you're telling everything that you know. What do you say about that, Brittany?
With all due respect, there was an accident that happened there that night, you guys, and that was your son accidentally shooting himself. He did it. We weren't expecting it to happen. We don't even know how it happened. But we're here. It happened. And we're not detectives. We weren't waiting with our steno pads, getting the degree of the anglage down. We weren't doing any of that. But we didn't do anything wrong. We tried to tell you guys everything that we knew. And that's all we've been doing.
So you didn't see anything? Did you actually see him shoot himself?
Yeah, but I don't remember anything, and I don't know why it frustrates me.
Right. But you did see it. Where were you when it took place?
If Shannon was Jake, I was right there. I was right here. He was standing like that, right there.
Right. And if anyone else had done anything, you would have seen it?
Yes.
And you maintain that this was Jake, that nobody else had anything to do with this, correct?
Yes.
And you understand why they want to know.
Of course, it's their son.
And you understand they're not blaming you. They're not blaming Evan, who isn't here. They're just saying they just want to know. And I, of course, I wasn't there. I don't know. But I'm telling the two of you, if you do know something about this, even if you've said that you didn't before, if you do, you need to give that up. They deserve that peace, and you deserve that freedom. This isn't something you want to carry around with you the rest of your life, and this isn't something you want them to suffer with the rest of their lives. If you have the ability to set them free with information, then you should do that.
This just feels like I'm in court again, or having to tell my story for a 5th time.
Well, is that inconvenient for you? If you have the ability to set them free with information, then you should do that.
And we have been doing that, and we have been telling the truth, and they still don't believe us, and this still happens.
Well, what do you say?
From the start, I've said, there's nothing that can change what happened, but none of us had anything to do with your son's death. None of us had anything to do with it.
And
it just feels like another deposition. This just feels like I'm in court again, or having to tell my story for a 5th time.
Well, is that inconvenient for you?
Well,
Are you complaining about them asking you?
Well, that's what we've been telling them for 2 years almost.
I understand. I just want to know what it is you're saying. What is it? You're saying this just feels like another deposition. This feels like I'm being questioned.
There's
again.
nothing else I could say about the matter. There's nothing else that happened that night. There's nothing I could say that would release them from their suffering, and it makes me feel terrible that there's nothing I could do about it. I've told the truth from day one. I've took the lie detector test. I'll take another one. I have just nothing able to say that could help you.
The reason that they keep hanging on to this, and it may have nothing to do with either of the two of you, it just may be that people didn't do their jobs. That they just didn't do their jobs right. But that's no reason for y'all to get irritated with them because they're asking the question. Put yourself in their position. What would you be doing? If your son's life was gone, would you just say, despite all these inconsistencies, I'll just say, okay, well, moving on. You wouldn't do that.
Of course not.
Then don't expect them to do it, and don't get irritated if they ask a question. Here's the thing. There's physical evidence here. If someone shoots themselves in the head, that is an explosion. It is a gunpowder explosion. And gunpowder explosion leaves powder burns. It's called stippling. They leave powder burns. Okay? There aren't any. You've ever watched a gun fire in slow motion? You see fire comes out of the end of it. There are gunpowder particles, and fire erupts from the end of it, and that burns whatever's right there. And unless you're 18 inches or more away, that's that far. I mean, out here and back.
I can't explain why.
Well, I can't either.
I'm not a detective.
No, but I'm asking you, do you understand why they're saying that the physical evidence doesn't support the reports of what happened? You get that, right?
Yeah, and I don't.
That doesn't mean you did anything wrong, but you understand they're saying there's an anomaly here, that it doesn't add up. The report says that the bullet entered the left back of the head. If that's true, with a .357 Magnum, you could probably replicate that 100 times, and that bullet would be on a trajectory, not perfectly straight, but it would certainly be moving left to right. And this one made a U-turn and wound up almost on the plane where it started. It came in, went out the top, and turned and went to the ceiling instead of out a window. So they look at that and say, physically speaking, they can't resolve that in some way. And they're hoping that y'all might know something that maybe you don't even know that might help them in some way.
Maybe his head was turned. Maybe
I can't explain.
Yeah,
I
we
have no
can't.
I can't either. And
thought about it.
Y'all aren't forensic specialists. I'm not expecting you to know that. I'm just saying, but you should have empathy for why they.
And we do. We do. Don't
why
get
they're
that
asking
wrong.
these questions.
Yeah, we understand. We understand, guys. Like, we have done everything for them that they've asked. They've asked us to do polygraph tests. We were more than willing to do that. We did that, within the next 2 weeks after that. And then we've answered countless questions for everybody, for everyone involved. We've been asked questions, and we've answered them, and to the best of our knowledge, every single time. And we do have sympathy, and we do respect you guys, and we do understand why you're doing this. It just gets to be hard on us. We try to forget about this night every single day. Every day. And to be asked constantly, over and over, for it to be brought up is, And we see all the Facebook stuff, and we see how everybody else from my school looks at me and thinks about me. It hurts. It really hurts.
We can accept that it was like Jake left that night and he got into a bad car accident and we lost Jake. We can understand how that would happen. We don't think that you guys did anything malicious. This is for finding out the truth. I'm going to have to tell Ella someday, you guys, if it's not exactly what happened, help me so that I can explain this to Ella someday. What happened?
I wouldn't lie to you, Mike. I wouldn't lie to the cops. If somebody else would have did it, I would have told them that night. Plain and simple. Plain and simple.
Well, let's take a break.
This is the house where Jacob died. The couch was here. The bullet ended up in this end of the room, in the ceiling. Jakey had to be laying right here.
Mike went back to the house where Jake was killed and demonstrated what he believes took place. Let's get that out and then we can talk about it.
This is the house where Jacob died. He had to be standing somewhere in this area. The couch was here. An ottoman was in front of this window. You can actually see the ottoman in some of the pictures. The bullet ended up in this end of the room, in the ceiling. Brittany says that he was looking in her eyes, shot in the left side, makes the bullet go out the picture window here. Doesn't make it go up there. My theory, if Jake was here, Evan, Brittany, Will on the ottoman, the gun was said that it was on the ottoman. They picked it up with the hammer of the gun. If they were goofing around and Will did some move, Jake would have done a defensive move. No. Slightly turned towards the pass-through to the kitchen. The gun goes off through the left side up into the ceiling. From what I've read and understand, typically suicides are in the temple, like this, and with your dominant hand. The bullet entered more in the back in the colicky area. It was not in the temple, more in the back of his head. And Brittany tells me that he hit his knees and fell back, and Jakey had to be laying right here. I've been in this house and gone over this through my mind 100 times. I'm just trying to tell what I believe happened.
Is Mike making some wrong assumptions here? I believe he is after the truth, and if he's making some wrong assumptions, let's straighten those out so he can think about this differently. What's he saying that's wrong? Because y'all were there.
The first thing is none of us shot him. None of us had anything to do with him. There was no defensive maneuver. There was no him. It has nothing to do with us. We weren't the last people to touch the gun. There's nothing else I could tell you about what happened. I was not sitting on the ottoman. I'm sorry that
sitting in the chair.
All the investigations we've had to talk to investigators probably 3 different times within 4-month periods each time. I'm sorry if there's little inconsistencies as where I went to eat or exactly where we're sitting, but in the end, we were all on the same side of the house. I can't explain to you how the bullet ended up that way. I can't explain to you why the forensics people can't figure out which way the bullet went in or out. That's all just ridiculous that they couldn't have done their job in the first place. I'm just upset that I even have to be here, and I'm upset that you had to lose your son, but I can't help you answer the questions you want answered.
It makes me mad to watch that and to think that you really do think one of us would do it.
We never thought it was
He
intentional.
just said that.
We never said it was intentional. We know you, Brittany, well enough to know that accidents happen. They happen to good people every day.
And this is an accident that Jake caused.
It is an accident that was labeled suicide.
Yeah, that's...
And we know, and I think you know too, that it was not a suicide.
He was the happiest person ever.
I even have that in my statements that he didn't do it.
We
on
all
purpose.
did.
I know he didn't.
It was a freak accident. Maybe he just didn't remember the safety was on Mike. I don't know what he was thinking. All I know is that we are here now, and to watch you do that.
It's just everything that I have and put in front of me, guys. It says that Jake...
Okay, well, if we're all sitting on this side of the room, and the bullet is behind us, if one of us were to shot Jake, wouldn't it be over in the other side? Have you ever thought about that?
I know you want answers. I did not cock the gun in any way. I did not have any hand in the gun going off.
Well, listen, I've been through everything each of you said in your interviews, and there were inconsistencies in your reports, but I have to say, I did not see an inconsistency there that I thought was unusual or unexpected. I mean, they seemed to me, You know, you'd say, well, I was kind of here, kind of there. I frankly was surprised that you could be as accurate as you were given the circumstances. You know, if it was exactly, precisely consistent every time, that would concern me, because psychologically that would suggest rehearsal and spitting it out exactly the same way every time. So I have to say, regarding the inconsistencies, I didn't see an inconsistency of consequence. And I know that you've said, well, he said was he on the chair, or was he on the ottoman, or whatever. I didn't see anything significant there. And I think you've reported things a little different from one time to the next, but I think it's a function of how the question was asked and what you remember at the time. And so I didn't see anything there that goes, oh, well, that tells me these guys are lying. I just, that to me was insignificant. You did say something in one of the interviews that I was curious about, Will. You said, I believe, you said, that you heard him say, be careful, there's still one in there.
Yeah, he did tell me that. When it was the last, when we came in after we fired the gun, he passed it around one more time. We all looked at it. He gave us our casings as a souvenir, for the first time ever shooting. I explained to him, I never shot except a .22, but I do. Anyways, he, we all looked at the gun last time, and I placed it on automatic, and he picked it back up. I don't know if he had a holster or where he was keeping the gun. My first report, that's where I thought he had the gun, but there might have not been one. I don't know. I just know that he picked up the gun, and when it was getting passed around, he just told us to be careful, that there was one more left in there. We didn't shoot all 6 bullets outside. And I said, yes, I understand that. Right. And I put it down. I did not cock the gun in any way. I did not have any hand in the gun going off whatsoever. The last person to have the gun was him. I can't explain to you guys how it happened. I don't understand how so many investigators could be on this situation and still not be able to figure it out. So, something's wrong somewhere, and I totally understand that from your point of view. If I had a son, I would do the same thing you're doing. It's just, we can't let go until you guys can let go, and I know you want answers, and I can't give you the answers that you're looking for.
Look, we're out of time, so we are going to continue this conversation tomorrow. Jake's parents are determined to get answers, and so they did something that would be very, very difficult for any parent. They exhumed their son's body. The question is why? Well, they wanted that autopsy. That never happened. And so they hired their own pathologist, Dr. Cyril Wecht. He says science doesn't lie, and we'll have those results tomorrow. Plus, Will and Brittany each took lie detector tests to prove that what they are saying is true. Will Mike and Shannon finally get the answers they want so they can get some closure on this and move on? We'll answer all of these questions and more tomorrow. You don't want to miss it. Thanks for being here.